There's a quiet kind of heartbreak that goes unnoticed, the kind that doesn't scream or plead, but lingers in the spaces between what was and what could have been. It's the heartbreak of the avoidant, someone who, despite their best efforts to keep their heart safe, let go of the one person they truly needed. And it's ironic, isn't it? The very walls they built to protect themselves end up being the walls that block them from the person who could have meant everything. When an avoidant releases someone they love, it's not always because they stopped caring. Often it's because fear whispered lies in their ear. It's too much. It's too close. You might get hurt. And so they step back. They detach. They leave. But what no one sees in that moment is the internal tug of war, the tug of regret, longing, and the haunting thought of what if. The pain doesn't show in grand gestures or tears. It shows in the quiet moments when they catch themselves reaching for someone who isn't there, in the late nights where silence echoes louder than words, and in the realization that the person they pushed away wasn't just anyone. They were the one who truly understood them, the one who could have loved them not despite their flaws, but because of them. And here's the hard truth. Losing the one they needed most often leaves an avoidant facing themselves in a way they never anticipated. They start to see the emptiness that self-protection created, the missed opportunities, the love that slipped through their fingers. It's painful, yes, but it's also transformative, because in that moment of quiet devastation, they begin to understand something essential. Love is not a threat, it's a gift. And sometimes the only way to learn that lesson is to feel the weight of what they lost. So, to anyone who has loved an avoidant or who has been an avoidant themselves, remember this. Love is brave. Vulnerability is strength. And while losing someone can feel unbearable, it can also be the catalyst for growth, awareness, and the eventual opening of a heart that once feared being too close. Because the unspoken pain is real, but so is the possibility of change, the possibility of truly seeing, and the possibility of never letting go again when it matters most. Fear has a way of shaping our lives more than we realize. For the avoidant, fear isn't always loud or obvious. It's a subtle, persistent voice that whispers doubts and cautions at every turn. It tells them that closeness is dangerous, that being seen fully is risky, and that if they let someone in, they might lose themselves or be hurt. It's not that they don't feel love or desire connection. On the contrary, they often crave it more than anyone. But the anticipation of potential pain, of disappointment, of being overwhelmed by someone else's needs becomes so powerful that the safest choice seems to be pulling away. Self-protection becomes a habit, almost second nature. An avoidant will retreat before anything can go wrong, even when the person they're stepping back from is patient, kind, and understanding. The heart knows what it wants, but the mind has created a set of rules designed to prevent vulnerability at all costs. So they might push someone away under the guise of independence, busyness, or emotional distance, convincing themselves it's rational, when in reality it's fear in disguise. This fear is often rooted in past experiences, childhood wounds, broken trust, or early lessons that closeness equals pain. Every new relationship becomes filtered through that lens. An avoidant might feel a deep, unspoken pull towards someone who sees them, but before they can fully engage, they scan for threats, for moments where they might lose control or be hurt. The closer they get, the louder the fear whispers and the more instinctively they retreat. The tragedy is that this self-protection often comes at a high cost. The very act of safeguarding themselves can push away the people who could love them fully, the ones who could help them feel safe in ways they never have before. It's a paradox. The stronger the fear, the more defensive they become, and the more likely they are to lose the connection they secretly desire. The walls they build to keep themselves safe end up isolating them from the very thing that could heal their deepest insecurities. Even though this behavior may look like indifference or coldness to an outsider, it's rarely a lack of care. Behind every step back is an internal struggle, a battle between the heart which wants to lean in and the mind which shouts retreat. It's a tension that can last years, leaving avoidants torn between longing and fear, desire and doubt. They may never admit it openly, but each push, each withdrawal is motivated by the hope that by keeping distance, they can survive emotionally. And yet, there is hope within this pattern. Recognizing that fear drives these behaviors is the first step toward breaking it. The avoidant can learn that vulnerability doesn't have to mean destruction, that connection doesn't automatically lead to pain, and that the people worth keeping will not abandon them simply for needing closeness. Understanding the root of this fear, acknowledging it, and facing it consciously is what allows an avoidant to transform self-protection into self-awareness and begin to experience love fully. Regret is a quiet companion, one that doesn't announce itself with fanfare but slips in during the moments when the world is still and the noise of distraction fades. For the avoidant, who has let go of the one they truly needed, regret isn't dramatic or explosive. It's subtle, creeping in like a shadow that refuses to leave. It doesn't hit in the middle of a conversation or in a crowded room. It hits when they're alone, late at night, lying awake, scrolling through old messages, or passing by a place that reminds them of what they lost. It's in these quiet moments that the weight of what they've done feels almost unbearable. What makes this regret so intense is the awareness that the choice to let go was theirs. Unlike heartbreak caused by external circumstances, this is heartbreak by their own hand. Every thought, every memory, every what if becomes a mirror reflecting the decision they made, the decision to retreat, to detach, to protect themselves from vulnerability. And in those reflections, they see clearly what they might have had, what they threw away, and what can never be reclaimed. The realization that the person they lost was not just anyone, but someone rare, someone patient, someone who truly understood them is an ache that doesn't fade easily. This regret isn't just about missing the person. It's about missing the version of themselves that could have loved without fear, that could have trusted without hesitation. It's about seeing how their avoidance, meant to shield them, ended up creating a void. Each small reminder, a song, a place, even a scent, becomes a trigger, bringing them face to face with the truth that they let the most meaningful connections slip through their fingers. And because avoidants often internalize their emotions, this pain is lived quietly, silently, often without anyone knowing how deeply they are affected. The insidious part of this regret is how it can transform over time. At first, it's confusion, a vague sense of unease. Then it becomes longing, an ache for the companionship they gave up. Finally, it turns into self-reflection, a reckoning with the patterns and fears that caused them to push away the one person who might have changed everything. And yet, this process is slow, because the avoidant often guards their heart even against themselves. It takes repeated encounters with their own emptiness and repeated reminders of what was lost before the lesson truly sinks in. What makes this period of quiet reflection so powerful is that it forces an awareness that no amount of avoidance can erase. The truth that love, when genuine, is rare and fragile, and that when it's let go, it doesn't simply vanish. It leaves behind an echo that can haunt a person for years. And it's in those quiet, unguarded moments that the avoidant begins to understand the value of what they lost, the depth of their mistake, and the subtle but undeniable consequences of choosing self-protection over connection. This lingering regret, painful as it is, can ultimately become a catalyst for growth. It teaches them that the cost of avoidance is often far higher than the discomfort of vulnerability. And it lays the groundwork for a future where they might recognize someone like that again, and perhaps this time hold on. There is a truth that avoidants often fail to fully grasp until it's too late. The person they let go of was unlike anyone else. They weren't just a partner, a friend, or a companion. They were a mirror, reflecting the parts of the avoidant that no one else could see, no one else could understand, and no one else could accept with patience and grace. This person recognized the complexity behind the walls, the fear beneath the distance, and the longing behind the withdrawal. They didn't just tolerate the avoidance defenses. They navigated them with empathy, sensitivity, and a quiet steadiness that few people possess. The uniqueness of this person lies in the depth of their understanding. They weren't interested in forcing change or demanding vulnerability on someone else's schedule. They were willing to wait, to show up consistently, to offer love in a way that honored the avoidance pace while gently encouraging growth. They saw the avoidant not as a project to fix, but as a whole person whose fears and quirks deserved acknowledgement and respect. And because of this rare combination of patience and understanding, they became irreplaceable without the avoidant fully realizing it. When an avoidant pushes such a person away, the loss is profound because what they lose cannot simply be replaced by someone new. Many people might offer affection, attention, or companionship, but few can replicate the sense of being truly known and accepted. This unique connection is not about superficial compatibility. It's about emotional resonance, a sense of safety, and an unspoken understanding that allows the avoidant to breathe without fear of judgment. Losing someone like this is not just losing love, it's losing the person who could have held the key to their emotional growth and inner peace. What makes this loss particularly painful is that avoidants often only recognize the uniqueness of the person after they're gone. While the relationship is happening, their fear and self-protection create a barrier that prevents them from fully appreciating the depth and rarity of the connection. It's only in the silence, in the void left behind, that they confront the truth. No one else may have the patience, empathy, and insight to navigate their complexities with the same grace. And this realization comes with a bitter sting, because it highlights the permanence of the mistake and the impossibility of fully recreating what was lost. Moreover, the avoidant may struggle with guilt and longing simultaneously. They remember the small, unique ways this person loved them, the gestures, the words, the subtle validations that felt like home. They recall the consistency, the trust, and the rare alignment of emotional depth that made the relationship feel different from anything else they had experienced. This combination of recognition and regret is powerful, forcing them to confront not only what they lost, but also what they failed to value in the moment. The uniqueness of the person they leave behind is a silent lesson. Some people are irreplaceable not because they are perfect, but because they see and accept others in ways that very few can. And it's only by acknowledging that uniqueness, even after loss, that the avoidant can begin to understand the true cost of stepping away and perhaps one day learn to approach love differently when it matters most. Loss has a way of breaking through even the most carefully constructed walls. For the avoidant, who has spent so much of their life guarding themselves, letting go of the person they needed most becomes a mirror reflecting truths they might never have faced otherwise. In the absence of that person, in the quiet moments after separation, the avoidant is forced to confront themselves in ways that are uncomfortable but necessary. The patterns they relied on, the retreat, the detachment, the emotional distance, become impossible to ignore when the consequences of those patterns are staring them in the face. What makes loss such a powerful catalyst is its ability to strip away excuses. During the relationship, the avoidant might rationalize their behavior. They were too independent, the other person too needy, or perhaps the timing was wrong. But when the person is gone, there are no external justifications left. The avoidant must face the reality that their own fears, choices, and protective instincts drove the separation. This confrontation is often painful because it requires them to acknowledge not just the loss of the person, but the role they played in creating it. Self-awareness emerges gradually, often in small, almost imperceptible shifts. They may notice patterns in how they approach relationships, the recurring fears that cause them to pull away, and the missed opportunities to engage fully with someone who truly cared for them. They might reflect on how their avoidance, meant to shield themselves from pain, ultimately resulted in a deeper, more enduring kind of suffering. The very mechanism designed to protect them, the defense of emotional distance, has backfired, leaving them alone with a clarity they may not have welcomed before. This period of self-reflection can be transformative because it forces them to reconsider what love truly requires. Love, they begin to realize, is not a threat but a challenge to grow beyond fear. It demands courage, honesty, and the willingness to remain vulnerable even when it feels unsafe. The absence of the person who could have helped them navigate these lessons makes the stakes tangible and the insights unavoidable. In other words, it's only through loss that the avoidant can see what they failed to understand while the relationship was still intact. That connection requires participation, not withdrawal, and that love flourishes where fear is acknowledged rather than ignored. Moreover, loss as a catalyst doesn't just foster introspection, it can inspire change. The avoidant may start to notice where they can loosen their defenses in future relationships, where they can communicate more openly, and how they can recognize and value those who offer patience and understanding. The pain of losing someone becomes a teacher, one that emphasizes the costs of avoidance and the rewards of courage. While the process is not instant and often comes with lingering regret, the awareness gained from loss is a turning point. It opens the possibility of breaking patterns that once seemed unbreakable and provides a framework for understanding themselves and their needs more deeply. In essence, the absence of the person they lost doesn't just highlight the void, they begin to see the path toward becoming someone capable of embracing love fully without the constant fear of being hurt. Love is never simple, and for the avoidant, it is often the most complex challenge of all. The truth is that love demands more than attraction, affection, or convenience. It demands courage, and it demands vulnerability. For someone who has spent years shielding themselves from emotional exposure, this requirement can feel terrifying. Opening up to another person means risking rejection, disappointment, or the kind of pain they have worked so hard to avoid. And yet, it is precisely this willingness to risk, to lean in despite the fear, that allows love to grow in its fullest form. The avoidant often forgets that the very walls they've built to protect themselves are the same walls that prevent them from experiencing genuine intimacy. They may believe that stepping back, withdrawing, or detaching is the safest path, but in reality, it is the path that guarantees the absence of deep connection. Courage in love is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act in spite of it. It's choosing to show up, to speak honestly, and to allow someone else to witness the parts of themselves that feel most exposed. This is what transforms relationships from fleeting encounters into something meaningful, something lasting. Vulnerability is equally essential. It is the recognition that love is not about control, perfection, or avoidance. It is about authenticity. To be vulnerable is to allow another person into the inner world that the avoidant has historically kept locked. It is to reveal fears, insecurities, and desires without the guarantee of safety. This is uncomfortable, yes, and it often challenges the core patterns of avoidance, but it is also the key to connection. Without vulnerability, love remains a surface-level interaction, never reaching the depth that can heal, nurture, and sustain both people involved. The paradox for the avoidant is that the very act they fear most, opening up, is also the act that could have kept the person they needed most from leaving. Courage and vulnerability are not just abstract ideals, they are practical tools that safeguard the relationships they value. When they lean into these qualities, they discover that closeness doesn't have to destroy them, that love doesn't have to overwhelm, and that intimacy can exist alongside independence. It's a balance that requires awareness, patience, and deliberate effort, but it is achievable and it is transformative. Moreover, embracing courage and vulnerability changes more than just the dynamic of a relationship. It changes how the avoidant sees themselves. They begin to recognize that their worth is not defined by their distance or self-protection, but by their ability to engage meaningfully with another human being. Each act of openness, each moment of trust reinforces a new pattern. That connection is not a threat, but a source of growth, joy, and mutual support. Ultimately, love demands both bravery and honesty. For the avoidant, the journey toward embracing these qualities is gradual, often accompanied by missteps and moments of doubt. Yet the reward is immeasurable, a capacity to truly love and be loved, to create bonds that are resilient, fulfilling, and transformative. In learning to be courageous and vulnerable, the avoidant discovers that love is not something to fear. It is something to embrace, even when it challenges every instinct they once relied upon. In closing, the journey of the avoidant teaches us that love, loss, and self-discovery are deeply intertwined, and that the pain of letting go often holds the lessons needed to grow, heal, and finally embrace connection fully. May we all learn to approach love with courage, to honor vulnerability as strength, and to cherish those rare souls who see us for who we truly are. Thank you for allowing me to share this message today, and for being present in a conversation about the power, complexity, and transformative nature of love.